Hello, welcome to Primary Sources. I'm Liz Nolasco, and I'm here with Lisa Murphy
Hi.
and, and Tiffany Pearsall.
Hello.
And we're talking about learning taxonomies and adult learning objectives. And we'll probably dip into children's learning objectives too, just based on where this goes, but mostly grown-ups, because I feel like we usually, when we hear Bloom's, I think now in the context of like, I need to get these learning objectives out for a presentation. So I wanted to start actually. So I'm going to start real quick with why I asked both of you, which I think I've already told you, but maybe not. But because both of you are also in educating adults, right? You do a lot of professional development, you work with grown-ups, you present at conferences. And like I said, I feel like I mostly see this in the concept of when you're creating a conference proposal, you need to say what people are going to get out of your session. And and it almost always asks or requires you use Bloom's verbs. And then I found another framework for it and thought that was interesting. But I'm curious to hear from both of you why you were also interested in doing this apart from just your love of me.
Tiff, you want to go first? Sure. I was gonna ask you to go first, but I'll do it. I personally am a big fan of Bloom's taxonomy. I feel like it hit me really early in my career, and it was really refreshing to see things from that perspective from the child learning side. And then I shared with y'all my sweet first school shirt that I made as our first fundraiser was a Bloom's taxonomy shirt. So I've been a fan for a while and didn't know anything about Fink's taxonomy until this was prompted. I don't present at conferences hardly at all anymore. I'm more focused on policy work and policy development, and we're actively designing a college for adult learners. And our mindset for that is we get to do whatever we want, so why not make it great and not box ourselves in by having to write verbs from a list. So that's why I was like, oh, yes, please, let's talk about this forever. Lisa, you're
This
next.
morning when I was thinking about it this morning, and I wanted you to go first because as both of you know, like I don't want to be the pod hog. Because my first thought was yes, occasionally people want you to pluck and pick some of those words from that list. But the truth of the matter is that nobody sitting in the audience gives two hoots about the words that I plopped into a proposal. And for what it's worth, to be full disclosure, I don't really present at places anymore where I need to be filling in those blanks. Like quite honestly, if I fill in the NACI
Mhm.
proposal, then yes, they want to do it. But usually it's somebody somewhere else who says, okay, Lisa Murphy's coming. We need to make it fit into those boxes. What are the words? So, I've cherry picked some of Bloom's verbs, put it into the workshop packet. So they, kind of have a crib sheet of these are the words that I would use. But this morning, and I actually thought, Tiffany, you were going to go here. The truth of the matter is that you have to Maslow before you can bloom. Because even
Yes.
if the people in the audience cared about the words that somebody in an office somewhere approved the session because we used them properly, even if somebody left that session going, I really feel today that I was prompted to synthesize and evaluate. Like, even if somebody was at that cerebral level when they were there, the minute they leave and perhaps get in a car accident or got sick on the way home, like they're automatic leave, they've jumped categories. Like, I don't know what the proper word would be. I don't think I would call Maslow a taxonomy, but I would call Bloom a hierarchy and I would call Maslow a hierarchy, the way that they're both kind of used. Although I think Dr. Fink is talking of about a more integrated model, is that I think these words can be very subjective and they can be very situationally specific. And my when I first responded to Liz about with the email of like, hey, are you curious about this? was it's like wolf words. Like, what do I need to call this for this to be something that people think is important? So at the end of the day, the Lisa Murphy lens on it is like, you can call it Bloom, you can call it Fink, you can call it this, you can call it that. At the end of the day, it's another list that if you spent more than 10 minutes with, you can find ways to plug play into it, which is always my lens and my bias. Like, how does this still meet the play criteria? Like, I will never let somebody use, we have to align this. Like, okay, fine, we can align it all day, but I'm still going to show you how it links back to free play, and it's not going to be what I call a hard stretch. Like even my mom would see the connections between your list and what's happening in a free play session. So I'll stop there. But
Yes,
that's
no, that's perfect. And you hit exactly Bloom's goal because his goal with creating the taxonomy was to give a common vocabulary to educators for standardizing tests, for standardizing evaluation of learning, which is why when we're sitting there, and I mean, my first introduction to Bloom, and I don't know how this differs from yours, was just that list of words. And like Tiffany, I was really struck by like, oh yeah, of course, these are all aspects that go into knowing something. Like this is great. This is so helpful. This is such a wonderful way to view the way people engage with knowledge of the world and create their own knowledge of the world. And then I got some fatigue after having to work with it for several years and just go, oh my God, just give me a verb.
Well, I remember when I first found, I mean, I have in front of me the revised one. This is the one NACI had us use this last year, with their link prompted us to. But the very first time, okay, full disclosure, that I found a list, I do believe the copyright date across the bottom, and it was like a copy of a copy of a copy. And it was like a 1966, I want to say. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. I thought I was the first person to discover fire. I was like, oh my gosh, this thing exists. Here I'm trying to like create something from scratch. That's when I was writing all the wolf books. And I was like, there's already something there. And I just remember like I would copy it and hide it in places because I would forget where I had put it. And I really was trying to remember this morning, not that it's relevant at all, but I was trying to remember how I came across it because I kid you not, I honest to God thought I was like privy, like I had discovered the sorcerer's stone, you know? I'm like, look at this magic piece of paper that is going to shut everybody up and we can get back to the business of letting children play. Yeah.
I
So that
love
was my
that.
first exposure to it. And then I really thought I think it is Tiffany. Tiffany was the first one, I do believe, who I heard say that you have to Maslow before you can bloom, right? And I was like,
I
it's
thought that
not
was
you.
you.
Maybe I
I don't know.
did.
I
I don't
don't
know.
know. I
It's
don't
been 30 years. I might have said it. It sounds like something that I would say. But I also think it's true. And I know you want to keep the frame of discussion today on Bloom and the other versions. But I do not but and I think it's important to acknowledge, especially for the listeners, just that the two really do dance hand in hand. Whether you use Bloom's, whether you use somebody else's, the idea that you still have to be in a headspace and a psychological space and a spiritual space and just an emotional state space of even being able to think about the fact that you're thinking about something. And that's not going to be possible if you're overly distracted with stuff, with life, with a broken leg. All of a sudden, we've all had that reality shift where what we thought was so amazingly important, all of a sudden we're kind of back down. And I don't want to make it sound like you've decreased, right? Or something's bad. But, that's what I love about Maslow's triangle is that depending on the day you're having, you can be at absolutely every single level. And I just think that needs to be acknowledged.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's any way to separate this
Yeah.
from policy, right? I mean, right now, with huge pushes for deregulation, a massive move by Head Start to end the salary parity it's going to be hard to find educators who have the capacity to care about professional development nearly enough to, yeah, they can care and also they need to put food on the table. They need to make sure their children are taken care of. There are 7,000 things pressing on them. And you're absolutely right. We need to honor that. We need to honor the endless quest for pay parity and a living wage for everybody and early childhood educators in this particular context.
Yes.
Hell yes.
Woo!
Right.
There's your mic drop.
Right? There's the mic drop
Um,
that it dances together. And um I didn't I do like the Fink's notion of it being um the taxonomy, he called it, of significant learning, which did feel a little bit more integrated. Although, again, this is what I love about potting, full disclosure. I didn't realize that Bloom was set up as a hierarchy. That was new to me kind of this morning in preparation for today. I always kind of thought, oh, these words kind of are based on the topic, right? Because more of one thing is going to happen with one of my topics, and more of something else might be happening with another one of the topics. But Fink, this kind of alt taxonomy, really was stressing the integrated piece. In fact, I wrote down in my notes it was like a kinder, gentler taxonomy, and I don't say that in a negative way, but it really did feel like, okay, it kind of toned it down and softened up the edges a little bit, for me. And I did go through and I read the explanations and the examples, and my first note was that this is all still happening in play, regardless of how you
yes,
slice it. You call it what you want to call it. Is this could this still function as a platform for us to be valuing free play in our environments? And of course, the answer is yes. But to your point, Liz, you have to have providers and caregivers and educators and early childhood people who are in that headspace to where they're able to start connecting those dots and even see that.
absolutely. And actually, the note about the hierarchy is interesting because in Bloom's 1974 book about it. So first of all, there were three taxonomies. So the cognitive one is the one that we're discussing, but there was actually an affective
Mm.
taxonomy that I was not able to track down. I know it exists. I think I ran out of time, frankly, and a psychomotor taxonomy that is apparently
Oh.
very difficult to track down. Um,
Why? How funny, right? So the
yes,
cognitive one you could probably download right now somewhere, but the ones that are more softer, right? Maybe more on the social emotional side of things, we're going to bury that in the trenches somewhere so nobody can find it. Because imagine if we had access to all three of those, how powerful the argument for free play would be.
absolutely. Right. And this idea
I have,
that it has to come top down. Sorry, go ahead, Tiff.
I have two thoughts that I need to jump in with. Does Bloom actually know what a taxonomy is?
He
That's like
goes
the
into
first thing.
depth
Reading
about
through
that.
these
Oh, sorry.
articles, I was like, I I have the Bloom book. I've read the Bloom book. I don't feel like it has been conveyed in the same way of like what actually is a taxonomy? How does this like taxonomies aren't necessarily hierarchies. And so I would love to hear more on that, Liz. Also, conversation is making me think a lot about adult play, which is kind of what we're here for. But how does this taxonomy and Fink's taxonomy help us frame adult play in a new way? Because I feel like that is also not talked about at all. And I'd love to talk about
Yes.
it.
100%. Yes. So I actually thought it was super interesting. In Bloom's book, he does say the labels fiction and nonfiction do not imply that one class of book is better, more abstract, or more complex than the other kind. So he says that in relationship to, as an analogy to his taxonomy, right? Just because the labels vary, it doesn't mean that one is better than the other. And when we call it a hierarchy, it does have that implication of like, obviously, we want these higher order skills. And that is what a lot of the articles point to. It's we want more of the creation, we want more of the synthesis and evaluation. And I think it's all important, right? So and the way Bloom et al. Conceptualized it was you cannot get to synthesis without knowledge and application, which makes perfect sense. But yeah, to your point, Tiff, it's just very much about who is making those calls, right? Who's deciding what's important. And I'm thinking more older children, right? Or, but I mean, even preschoolers now, right, with all the push down, this idea that we're looking still at knowledge, right? And so I did start this talking to you guys about adult learning, but yeah, bring it to the early childhood space when we want children to be able to name letters, name months. That's all knowledge. They don't necessarily have a context to apply it to. It's not something that they can do in play and be able to really work with it, grapple with it, and make their own decisions about it.
I would, yes, if the expectation is developmentally misappropriated, if the adult who's with that young
Mm,
child is right, because you'll hear kids
Yeah.
during play being like, "It's Wednesday," and again,
yeah.
developmentally, they have no idea what they're talking about, but somebody told them that they're going to the park or to go see grandma, so it wiggles its way in. And to somebody, again, who might not really get where kids are developmentally, younger children are developmentally, they might start jumping to conclusions, right? If they start hearing language like that. I believe that the Ormel article that you suggested us to read, I really was able to read that with an adult learner lens. And the thing in that
Mhm.
article, I don't know, do you put all these up for your listeners, right?
Yeah,
So
they're all in the
okay.
notes. Yeah.
It's the Ormel paper that was typed out. And my major takeaway from this, which for the record was written in 1973, and when he opens, he talks about the curriculum developments of the last 15 years. So I had to whip out a calculator and figure out how far back we were going to. So, like 1958, he's talking about these curriculum developments. And as you read through the article, it's really a pushback against behaviorism, right? And behaviorism, the way that
Yes.
we push, also still push back against it. But my takeaway from it was his comment that education and educated is confidence, is appearing confident.
Hmm.
And I think there's room to tease that apart because somebody can come across as very confident and not know what the hell they're actually talking about. But I also know that you do reach a point having been able to evaluate and synthesize and apply that you just know what you're talking about. And I believe that can come across as being confident. I know what I'm talking about. And so there's this self-assuredness, but that's only going to happen again. This is a beautiful full circle conversation. But it's only going to happen if the adult has been able to read the articles that the college professor has assigned for the homework, that they have an environment where they can have the time, right? In my world, it always comes back to the time. You might have a whole college class of people, kids, I can say that now, of people who want to learn about whatever that topic matter is, but don't have the resources, time being one of them, to actually start uh, uh, internalizing it so they can start playing with it. And so I mean, I really locked on the confidence piece, knowing full well that there was a lot that you could pull apart there, and how he really seemed to focus on the imaginative piece that seemed
Yeah.
to be missing. And we all know how that important that is, especially if a lot of your guys' conversations are coming back to adult play, and what I call the pipeline problem, and what is in the new edition of the book coming out, and I really, really call attention to that, is you can't give back what you didn't get. So if we're setting up environments for adult players, but they were never in their life told to go play, and now as a 27-year-old, you're saying go play, they're going to look around the room wondering who's doing it the right way, because they're all in their head.
Yes.
Hmm. So you're welcome. I got us off topic, but there you go. That's I loved this article. I took a lot of notes. Specific, like I found myself actually being able to apply this one particular article to my own work. So that's always a big, nice, good morning for Lisa Murphy. And I appreciate that because I never would have found this article on my own.
It's a really good one. Yeah, Tiff, I'm curious about the adult play. I know that that was one of your big draws.
Yeah, yeah. I also really love this article and have a lot of things written in my, I don't want to say real work, but my like day job
Yeah.
has a lot of notes from this. Uh, where do I want to start? I'm still stuck on the taxonomy piece of this because I feel like it's not a hierarchy, and I much
Tiffany, give us a
prefer,
definition. I'm interrupting you. For the
yeah,
listeners, give
yeah,
us a
for
Tiffany, give us a definition of taxonomy.
yes.
And I'm not quizzing you. I'm just like, spell it
No,
out.
I'm here.
Can
I'm
you
here for
remember
it.
what a
I'm so
taxonomy is?
pleased you asked. Yes, King Philip came over from Germany Saturday is the class. That's like why taxonomies were invented. So in biology, hello bio major, there's the kingdom and the phylum and the order and the genus and the species, and I think I just missed somebody in there. But it's this
Class, but
idea
that's
that
okay.
like, yeah, yeah, thank you. I'm not, yeah. uh, this idea that there's like this broader group that we belong to, and then we have speciated into different ways, and we're related to other organisms in these ways. And it's not a hierarchy, and it doesn't mean you have to go through these. Uh, I don't know. I just feel like it's been co-opted by people who don't understand taxonomies to mean things that it's not meant to mean. Because, yeah, you do kind of need to know some knowledge before you can comprehend. Like, you need to know how to read those words before they're going to mean anything to you. So, thinking of it more as this umbrella has been really helpful for me. And that honestly, before we started this, I was like, oh, yeah, Bloom. Like, you think about how you think about things. What is there to argue about? But now I'm just like fixated on this freaking taxonomy of it because I don't think it's a taxonomy at all. I think it's very much more a physics problem than a biology problem.
All right, we're going to stop here because it just keeps going and getting better. And we will be back in a couple weeks with more on taxonomies. And in the meantime, we'd love to hear from all of you, your thoughts, especially in the Discord. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Pre-primary sources is part of the Early Childhood Network. Thank you for listening.